Welcome to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast, where we talk to IT marketing leaders about how to drive more sales. Hosted by Carlos Corredor, founder of Condor, an Inc. 5000 company and one of the fastest growing IT marketing agencies in the US.
3, 2, 1, 0.
And this episode is brought to you by Condor, a digital marketing agency for mid-market IT services companies. Most IT marketing teams struggle to drive sales, overwhelmed by long sales cycles and an elusive audience. Condor helps you measure and generate a qualified pipeline, make the most with your budget, and be recognized as a revenue driver and not just a cost center. You can learn more at condoragency.com. And today's episode, we have Michael Johnson with us. Michael is the director of growth at a company called Fast Slow Motion, they are a CRM solutions provider, particularly around HubSpot and Salesforce. Michael has 14 years of experience working with CRM projects. He actually has an upcoming book called The Scalable Business Framework, which we'll be talking about, but it's about giving business leaders the blueprint on how to build a business that runs without them. So we're excited to get into those. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for joining. And please expand a little bit on both your background and Fast Slow Motion's background.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlos, for the opportunity. Excited to be here. Excited to speak to your wonderful audience. Yeah, just like you said, 14 years, going on 15 years working in the CRM space, and really have a passion for building scalable systems using CRM, using it as a lever for growth. Fast Slow Motion started in 2014, so we've been around 10 years, going on 11 years almost. And we're 125 folks right now. We're in 28 states as far as people go, the clients in all 50 states. And our focus, our passion is really to be a blessing to the business leaders we work with, mid-sized businesses, small businesses, and help them use the tools they have to grow and build scalable systems that continue to go to the future. Sometimes they already have a CRM, and sometimes they need to implement a CRM. And so we're the ones that come in. We're the CRM experts. We do the things that, frankly, our clients don't want to do when it comes to a CRM, and make it happen. That's our story, and that's my story.
Yeah, I think so. I think CRM platforms are one of those that, even though they've grown in, let's say, demand and use, it's not really a new concept. For example, ABM, or it's a mature, let's say, type of platform in the marketing space. But 14 years is a long time. So I'm curious to your view on how the CRM use and adoption has evolved over those 14 years. Like, how was it? I don't even remember how it was 14 years ago, right? Maybe it was a new thing back then, but why don't you tell us how you see it?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Carlos, because I think while the tool set has shifted, I think a lot of people's view of what CRM is still stuck in the late 90s, early 2000s. They see it as really a Rolodex. They see it as a catalog of my customer names and addresses, and I might log in there and make some notes. And from there, that was in its inception. But really, CRMs exist for three things, and these are the three things that we utilize CRMs to help businesses grow. They exist to drive process, and they exist to build automation and automate workflow within an organization. And then they exist to provide visibility into the organization and how it's running. And a common misnomer is that CRM is for salespeople or CRM is for marketing. We help businesses build their entire process on one platform. That way you have A to Z visibility across the business. You understand what's going on, everything from lead gen and marketing all the way through invoicing and automation around that. The tools are so much more powerful than they were, especially we're talking about AI and a lot of the things coming in the next couple of years. They're really at the forefront of enabling businesses to take advantage of new technology and new capability.
And we were talking about the reasons on why some businesses grow and others won't, right? What do you mean by that? And what have you seen in the two types?
Yeah. So the thing, again, working with over 1,000 clients for the past 10 years. The thing that we've seen that growing companies do, scaling companies do, the ones that don't, they get stuck, It's really this focus on process automation and visibility. So which is the core of what we call the scalable business framework. And it's those three principles. They focus on building really rigid processes, and they run their companies by them, and they live and die by them. And then they build automation on top of those to create effectiveness for their organization. So their team adds the most value as possible. And their team actually does the process really easily because of the automation. And then they have clear visibility into what's happening in the organization. So they can see results on when they're winning, they can see why they're winning. When they're losing, they can see why they're losing. And then they can learn those lessons and then update the process. And it creates this iterative cycle of process, automate, visibility that allows you to scale. When companies aren't growing, they're short on one of these. They don't automate as much, and so their process is too hard. Or their people are spending too much time not adding value. Or maybe they don't focus enough on process. And the results are too inconsistent. They're too variable. And so from a business perspective, it's hard to scale a business when you're getting different results all the time, or you're really relying on one person for all the output. And then if you're looking for investment, it's the first things investors are looking for. If you want to bring someone in to help you scale your business, they're looking for predictability. They want to invest and guarantee that return in the future. So you got to have a consistent output. And so focusing on process and automation, and then a lot of times folks don't see what's happening in the organization. And so they can't learn lessons. And so it's one of those three things typically, if a business isn't growing or isn't scaling, they're short in one of those. And we come in a lot of times, use CRM to help them with that. And so they can grow and scale.
For the first one, for processes, what do companies typically do wrong? Because I think all of them, they want to do it, but a lot of times they're not practical. Or what are common mistakes in preventing them from doing number one?
Yeah, Carlos, you're exactly right. Companies want to do process. They get it. They're bought into it. And it's really in how they do it. Processes are like your bones or your muscles. You have to have them as a business to run and to move and to accomplish things. Mm-hmm. I think what a lot of people fall short on is they're afraid to be really rigid and prescriptive with their process. So they let people take a different path to get to the goal. And if you scale that over time, you suddenly have maybe 10, 15 different ways to accomplish the goal. And you can't build a system that scales with that many different ways to accomplish the goal. One of them's the best way. What we try to help people do is figure out the best way to do it and make everybody do it that way, and then make it easy for them to do it. But that's really where they fall short. They're afraid to be too rigid. They don't document it. They don't believe in like validating the data or using things like entry and exit criteria, requiring data along the way. And it really boils down to they don't hold the team accountable doing it the right way. And they care more about the result than they do the process. But the process is really the magic.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. And I think, I don't know, from how I interpreted it and the way that I've seen it, I want to see if you feel the same way. It also, a lot of times you're trying to please a lot of people, and you ended up creating a lot of duct tape on that is not the best way, right? So there needs to be somebody with enough authority to tell everybody, sorry, we're going to do it like this. And you have to just embrace it and move on. Because then you start, again, you put a duct tape here, a duct tape there, and it's ultimately so inefficient. It serves so many purposes that it ends up not adding value to anyone.
Absolutely. So as business leaders, I often joke that we're like MacGyver. If you know the old show, MacGyver's whole shtick was he was in some situation and he got the chewing gum and the paperclip to disarm the bomb. And a lot of times we find ourselves in this situation, our business grows and then we have to do something new. And so what do? We bolt on something. We add a spreadsheet or we add a tool, and we just never get off that. We never systematize it or bring it in or look at the whole process again. And so you fast forward and then you've got maybe 10, 12 different tools running your business, or you've got critical processes in a spreadsheet and it doesn't scale. And so much of what you said was really good, Carlos, because so much of what we focus on, what we hear a lot, is right people, right seats. You just get the right people in the right seats and everything's going to be all right. And there's some truth to that. I'm a big believer. It's who before what. I'm a big believer in that. But if you got the right people in the right seats and the system and the process doesn't work and it doesn't scale and it's not consistent, they're not gonna shine. They're not going to get the right product. So you've got to take those right people, and instead of going top down with building your process, start at the bottom. use that talent that you have, design the process the right way, and find the optimal path, map it out, and then use it. And focus on, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Just get it out there, run it, and then go from there.
I think that's one that I see a lot. You know, they have something that clearly is broken, or let's say it's poor, mediocre, however you want to call it, right? And then you offer an alternative that is better, and they say no. They always find the cons instead of simply seeing that they have more pros and cons in the new way that you're recommending. So that's, I think, one challenge that I think is psychological in nature. And the other one that I also think is psychological in nature is the fear of change, right? And they say, we always done it like this other person is used to see. So their natural first reaction is, okay, let's change it, but let's not get too drastic. Let's start by changing here and see how it goes. Whereas sometimes you feel like, no, let's actually don't use this at all, start with a new system, clean. So I'm curious to see if that's something that only we're seeing at Condor, or if you are also dealing with those, let's say, psychological challenges.
Yeah, change management is a big one, and adoption. That's really what you're talking about. Change management, fear change management, and adoption. And it really, to me, always boils down to value. Can you demonstrate, and does the team understand the value of the change that you're making? And whenever you hear that, whenever someone says, oh, I want to do it the other way, or, oh, I'm afraid to do it, or that's different than we've always done. Imagine this. Imagine you're riding a bicycle to and from work or to and from the grocery store, and someone says, hey, Carlos, here's a car for you. And you say, I really like my bike, yada, yada, yada. And then they could say, oh, okay, you just keep riding your bike. Or they could say, hey, this car is actually really perfect for you. Here's why it adds a ton of value for you. And they demonstrate to you why it's a better option. Better yet, they come to you and say, hey, Carlos, why don't you pick out a car that you like and I'll pay for it? Then you're bought in. And so it's this combination of demonstrating the value and then bringing the team along with you on the journey and letting them make decisions and have ownership in the process. And so now they have a system that they see value in, and they help design and build. And so that's part of them. And so now you've got champions on the team. There's clear value that they can demonstrate. That's a much better path to adoption than, again, that top-down approach, or, hey, we decided that we're going to do this. That rarely works because there's so much information that folks that are decision makers might not know.
And when you're working with clients, or let's say onboarding a new client, I assume that you adapt to the platform that they are already using, or the tech stack that they're already using for the most part? Or do you recommend, let's say, switching? I guess it depends on the case. What's more common?
Yeah, so from a CRM platform perspective, we only use Salesforce and HubSpot because they're the most scalable platforms and have the most on-platform customization capability. And so it's easier for our teams to own, or our client teams to own long-term. There's not a lot of specialty knowledge, and there's not a lot of limitation that they have on the platform. So we implement those. As far as integrating with their tech stack, that's really the benefit of these. I mean, those, Carlos, you probably know, those platforms integrate with everything. Yeah. And so there's really no limit there. It's really, we find limitations really on the third-party platforms and what they'll let us do, or if the API is open or not. So they're highly flexible, highly customizable platforms, which is why we choose to use those.
And do you usually recommend to take full advantage of the built-in features or more integrations, right? Or do you have any particular stance?
Yeah, as much as possible, we will want people to use a single source of truth. And if we can, we will try to pull in functions from outside the CRM onto the CRM. And again, CRMs, people think, oh, that's just my sales pipeline. But we implement delivery processes and customer service processes and invoicing processes. We can onboard a lot onto the platform, so everything runs really streamlined, the data's connected. And then there's some cases, some industries, manufacturing is a great example. You've got inventory, you've got cost center, accounting. You've got a lot of things that the CRM really maybe shouldn't do. So some really technical stuff that's connected to the level 2 systems. So in some cases, there is like an ERP type use case, and that's where integration is really powerful. And that's under, and again, if you think the scalable business framework, that's under that automation umbrella. So we're automating data back and forth between two platforms so that the team has clear visibility in one place to see everything they need to see. And so that in that case, our decision is, our play that we run is, let's pull the data we need from the ERP into HubSpot or Salesforce so the team can contextualize what they see, interact, send records back and forth, send data back and forth, and they can run everything in one place.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of keep it simple, stupid, but also start small and also make sense of your main tool. I see a lot of even though, for example, Google Analytics, it's a better platform than HubSpot for traffic analysis. I see a lot of companies that get better insights and make better decisions just by using HubSpot as a traffic analysis source, because unless you have a rigorous integration between the two, and then you can see, yes, you're seeing the traffic and conversions, but you're also seeing qualified leads, right? And there are very few companies that have that. You're just better off looking at business in HubSpot and conversions according to HubSpot.
Absolutely. So it's all about that visibility. And can you tie, your example is really great. If I can see web activity, that's awesome. So I can see what's really active. But what happens once they get inside my company's processes? Which lead sources actually convert at what rate? And then that knowledge, that's the really powerful knowledge that tells me where to invest more. I could have a really successful ad or a successful path into my site, but if those folks never convert, then it's not worth investing there. I need to unite those data sources and see where at the front end of the funnel, where do those people align at the bottom end of the funnel, and let that make my decisions.
Yeah, another thing that I think it's dangerous is how, and it comes from a good intention, is a lot of marketing leaders of mid-market companies, they are obviously prepared. They read, they know trends, they read Forrester and Gartner. A lot of times they start reading things that they think they should be doing, but that's an enterprise level problem, right? It's not their problem yet. So they want to start doing multi-touch attribution, media mix modeling, and I'm sure a lot of concepts that apply to CRM as well, but they don't have the basics working yet there, right? So you have to say, okay, you cannot run before you crawl. Let's get you crawling 100%. First.
Yeah, we're big fans of the minimally viable product MVP approach. Let's build the skateboard before we build the bicycle. Let's build the bicycle before we build the truck. Like that's the stages. We want you to get value as soon as possible. And in that, you're absolutely right, Carlos. We have folks come to us and they've got really ideas on the things they want to do because they believe in it. And they believe in the power of these tool sets. AI is a great example. Before we get there, there's some basic blocking and tackling stuff that you can implement today to get a ton of value. Let's do that first. And then down the road, we can layer on this additional value. And then in a few months, you're able to take advantage of some of these high-end things you wanted to do, but you're getting so much more value than you would have to begin with. You couldn't even have used it. And so it starts small, MVP, don't boil the ocean. Let's knock out fastest path of value. And that's the real way clients win.
And you mentioned AI, and there's also automation.
Yeah.
That if I remember, that's the second step, right? The first is processes, the second one is automation.
Yep.
How do you feel about, you already mentioned that automations are underutilized, right? I don't want to jump into conclusions, but I'll take a wild guess and say that your position is that AI is the buzzword, but at least from a CRM standpoint, make sure that you're fully using automation before thinking about AI, because otherwise you won't even have enough data to let AI do its magic.
Absolutely. The statistics tell us that the average CRM user uses less than 50% of the platform that they're paying for. So most of the folks you talk to have a ton of mileage to get out of their current investment before they even touch AI. And there's a ton of automation in these platforms, especially with Salesforce and HubSpot, that you can build in to create efficiency in your process and create effectiveness for your team. And so that's what we really focus on. The cool thing about where we're at with CRM, I really think CRM is at the forefront bringing AI from that high-level enterprise application down to mid-level businesses and small businesses through the platform because of the data structure, because of the way you store your data in these platforms, and makes AI, it gives it a way to more easily access the data. But to your point, Carlos, yeah, if your data isn't organized or you're not capturing the data in your process that you want to then use to trigger AI or have AI give you insights on, then it's not going to work. So you always have to start with process. Am I capturing the right data? Is the process accurate? Is the data structure right? And then move on to automation. Now let's bolt on AI and let's plug it into these data points that we have. And now let's see the insights and visibility that it gives us. Okay. And now we can learn, are we missing something? Do we need to update something? And let's update the process.
Michael, I'm sure we already covered some of the concepts that you touch in your book, but why don't you tell us more about the book that is coming out? When is it coming out, and what type of people can benefit from reading it?
Yeah, super excited about the book. It should come out. We're targeting February 2025, so it should be out then. It's going to be called the Scalable Business Framework, and I've talked a little bit about it. At the foundation, and this is lessons from building our business and other businesses and our clients. The foundation that you have to have coming in before you really get into the operational side is purpose. You have to have a why. You have to define your purpose as an organization. It comes from values. And then people. You got to have the right people, and you have to be able to say no to the wrong people, both internally and externally. So that's defining the right customers. That's defining the right profile for your team. Have the people align, and then profit. You've got to have a business that can generate cash flow and profit, or else it's just a hobby. Okay, so once you have that foundation and really have aligned there and owned those and made them custom for your team, then you can get to the operational side and then build out your process, build out your automation on top of your process, and build out visibility. And so it's this foundation and then this engine of the Scalable Business Framework, which is process, automation, visibility, that helps a business grow. The book really helps journey through that. And I think any small business owner, anybody that's trying to grow and build a business, anyone that's in a business and is stuck or going through the classic business owner things. I'm working 4 or 5 hours every Saturday, or I'm missing my son's t-ball game because I have to get these numbers finished. If you're doing some of this stuff, that's symptoms of a larger problem that good process and good systems can help you get rid of.
So it sounds like then it goes a little bit, it starts before when you have to think about your CRM, right? It starts even by defining the purpose of your business, which, as you mentioned, sounds basic, but in a lot of small businesses, especially, that is not, most of the time, it's actually not defined yet. So then once you get there, then you can start thinking about what things to automate and how to build that, which is where most of the book is focused on. Yeah.
So a lot of times, business, especially small businesses, as they're building, I mean, they intuitively understand why they want to do something, but if they operate in a way of what's the purpose of the business? To make money. Okay. The purpose, there's a deeper purpose that's going to help you produce better results. And so let's dig into your values. Why are you even going through this effort to start this business and run this business? What's the impact that you want to have? Let's focus on that, distill some values and purpose there, and then you can align your organization. That helps you get the right people that believe in it and that want to have that same impact that you want to have. Internally, I already said what our purpose is. It's really, we call it impact, but it's to be a blessing to business leaders as they grow a business. Okay. What does that mean? And for us, that means that we operate in a certain way that we're a breath of fresh air to them. We're different than any other consulting company they've worked with, because not only do we bring technical expertise and business expertise, but we run it in a specific way that's very transparent. It's just easy to work with. That's our goal. Right. And we want to help them. We want to enable them to grow their own businesses. And so we want to be a blessing to them. And so that you have that purpose defined that helps you get your people set. And then your people can help you focus on the thing to go to market that's really unique and impactful and will help drive that purpose. And so you get all those three things aligned, and you let those pour into every part of your organization. That's a recipe for success.
And what motivated you to write the book?
I think, for me personally, and I'm co-authoring it with John Burdett, who's our founder. I know he has his own stories. For me personally, my dad was a small business owner, And so I learned very early on how to run a small business and the trials and tribulations that come along with it. And very passionate about helping that group of people better their lives, because that is most of the country. Most of the businesses in the US are small businesses. And so this is a book that can help a lot of people who are stuck or feel like they have a ceiling on their capability, get free from that and continue to grow and continue their journey. But yeah, for me, it was my dad, an inspiration. And I learned a lot from him on how to run a business. And yeah, I want to make it easier. I want to bless those people.
Think he'll be reading it if he's still alive?
No, unfortunately, yeah, he passed on about 8 years ago. But no, I knew he'd be proud. And gosh, half the book is stuff I learned from him. I feel like I think he'd really appreciate it.
I feel represented. And I think a lot of people feel represented on really how much of your childhood plays a factor into then your later purpose in life. My dad also, he started his own business. He went from being employed when I remember I was like maybe 5 or 6, but then not too later after that, he started his own business and the struggles and everything. And I saw that firsthand. So I think that gave me also the motivation, the learnings of going out there and trying it. And I think it's way different for somebody that had a dad, for example, that they worked his entire life in a company. It's more likely either to follow that path or at least learn from that and do the completely opposite. But in general, the impact that your childhood has on you, it's something that I'm fascinated, and I can totally see how that played a big role in your motivation to write the book.
Yeah, a lot of it is the willingness and understanding of risk and the willingness to take a risk and to jump out there and do something and go to market, knowing that probably some of what you've got is wrong, and the willingness to get out there and fix it, the willingness to be wrong and then fix it. That's that flexibility. I think that's part of it. That's what I saw. And yeah, sometimes that's hard. It's definitely hard on the person, especially if it's a really small business, but there's a method to get past it and a method to learn it. And that's what we hope to empower people with.
No, I completely agree. The concept of risk taking is something that fascinates me. Actually, I have this book that just came out a little bit ago. I don't know if you're familiar with Nate Silver, the guy that is famous for predicting 50 states, or like he predicts election wins. Yeah. And then it's on the edge. And it's called The Art of Risking Everything. I recommend this book. It's also very interesting. And besides giving you some great, let's say, business advice, especially if you own a business or want to start one, but in general, it's fascinating. So figured I should mention it for the people that are interested in the concept.
Absolutely. And that's why I think the thing that entrepreneurs have is they're really sure of their identity. Folks, it doesn't seem, when you bet on yourself and you're confident in who you are, it doesn't seem like a risk. And there's some process there and some thought and some contemplation to define who you are and understand your values and get a vision for how that applies to other people. That I think that if you do some of that, it makes that a lot easier. That's I think the big shift for people that aren't really there yet to people that are there is there's a confident understanding of who you are, what you value, and how you can impact others and how to apply it. And that's what makes people want to go out and make a difference and grow a business and start a business, is that change, that mind shift.
Oh, that's a great point. I think you have your next book's idea right in there, because you are experts in CRM, but then the book goes to define your purpose before you get to automations and scale, right? But then now you're saying define, or not define, but at least be cognizant of your values before you define your business purpose even, right? So I completely get it, because otherwise you won't, if you don't understand your why, the concepts that then you learn about defining a purpose or all of the other decisions you're going to make, they're going to be somewhat arbitrary. They're not going to be grounded in something permanent or something that you really believe in.
Yeah, John Maxwell says, when you find your why, you find your way. And I totally believe that. That's foundational. And that's something that I hope people see in the book. And you talked about CRM. CRM is just a tool. And people, there's so much that goes into implementing a successful business. You look at someone buys Salesforce, for example, it's the same platform, and one set of people hate it, one set of people love it. It's like, why are you getting different results if it's the same? And it's the intentionality, it's obviously your customization, how you build it, but It's what goes into it that makes it different.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back from more of a philosophical last few minutes to now back to the technical.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when do you usually, let's say I'm a growing small business and I'm using a CRM that is not either HubSpot or Salesforce, right? And I'm saying, oh, I want to hire you guys, but let me know which one do you recommend. I'll do what you guys tell me. In what instances do you usually recommend one versus the other?
Between Salesforce or HubSpot. Yeah, so that's interesting. A big one used to be if you need HIPAA compliance. And so, you got to use Salesforce, but HubSpot this year is on board to HIPAA compliance. Mm-hmm. And so that gap is narrowing. We really focus and help the person make, I think, even from a cultural standpoint, the right choice. Some of it has to do with the level of integration or complexity that's in their business can help us go one way or the other, how integrated their marketing team is one way or the other. And so there's just a few factors that are specific to the business. And some of it too is their perceptions. Mm-hmm. They might hate it. They might hate a tool because they have bad experience with it. That's going to color everything. And some of it is a little bit too of their perceptions, their history. So it's a little unique for every business that we work with.
And so there's not the belief that it's like HubSpot is for small and maybe medium, and then Salesforce is for medium and maybe large companies. That's not necessarily true.
No, we see HubSpot at enterprise level, and we've implemented Salesforce for hundreds of small businesses. Yeah. And so they're highly customizable platforms, and there's no limitation there, up or down, on where you can apply them.
Oh my God, I'm excited about the book coming out in February. I'll pinpoint do you have a hard date or not yet?
Not a hard date yet. No, we're still finalizing some details, but that's what we're thinking is February next year.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? The logistics. How long have you guys been writing it for?
This year. We started late.
That's a success story then.
Yeah. Just to get it out. Yeah. No, it's not an easy process, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. All the best with the book. Anything else that I haven't asked that you want to share, or do you think people would benefit from hearing?
We talked about this earlier, and I think that you and I share probably the same value, is that let's focus on getting value. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think you probably encounter this. I encounter this too, of folks, they want, we've got to design this perfect engine, and we've got to really spend a lot of time and wait to get things going. Just start. Just get out there, start your process for us, implement the CRM, get some value, get your sales team in it, get your production team in it, get some value. You're going to learn so much by using the tool than you would sitting and planning and waiting and thinking about, am I going to get ROI, or how can I guarantee results? That's not realistic. Let's get in, let's get value. Let's use it as a lever to grow your business. We're going to learn so much. You're going to get so much more out of it than you would have otherwise.
And let's say around the concept, not only CRM, but really automation and scale, right? Any resources that you recommend, any mentor, any publisher, any book besides yours that you recommend folks that want to learn more and get better at it?
Oh man, if we want to come down to the core basics, I'm a big 7 Habits, Stephen Covey believer. And so I'll always recommend that book. If we're going back and designing process, start there. Think about the 7 habits and applying that to your organization. Start there, because there's so much that's wrapped there with, even in automation's really a way to create effectiveness in your organization. And so it's focusing on the right things and minimizing the things that don't add value. And that's all right there in that book. So I think starting there, people getting aligned on that personally and applying that to the business is a huge first step.
All right. I actually haven't read that one. I read Atomic Habits, but not the 7 Habits.
Oh, yeah. It's the granddaddy of them all. It's a great book.
Cool. All right. Well, Michael, thanks a lot, man. I enjoyed our conversation, and truly thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, Carlos, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe for future episodes. Until next time.